Most Disney fans are dying to get to the bottom of this decision. Why did Disney get rid of Toontown at Walt Disney World? This land was incredibly popular, it was a favorite of most guests, but Disney took it away in the blink of an eye and replaced it with Storybook Circus. This is the story of the downfall of Toontown and why Disney decided to replace it. And to understand this, we need to go back in time. In the late 1970s and the early 1980s, Walt Disney World had a problem. Despite Mickey Mouse being the face of the Disney company, it was challenging for guests to meet him. At the time at Walt Disney World, there were only 2 parks, and one of those parks, Epcot, had no character meet and greets. This was actually done intentionally in the park planning that Disney did not want standard characters at Epcot to really set it apart from Magic Kingdom. And so guests only had one park, the Magic Kingdom, to meet Mickey Mouse, and they couldn't find him. The park relied on character guides, daily printed out sheets that helped cast members direct guests to the character's location that day. Because Mickey didn't have a specific meet and greet location, guests had to rely on those cast members because he wasn't on a map. And this was one of the most common complaints of guests during this time, so Disney had sort of a unique idea. And that idea happened to coincide with the big event. To open an entire land themed after one singular character. It had never been done before. And what better time to create that new land than Mickey Mouse's 60th birthday, which fell in the year 1988.
Birthday videograms are pouring in from all around the country.
Happy birthday, Mickey Mouse!
Happy 60th birthday, Mickey.
Happy birthday, Mickey!
This would be the first new land to come to Magic Kingdom since the park opened, but there was one problem. Where would it go? Enter the Grand Prix Raceway. The Grand Prix Raceway really was the key to Toontown. This was an opening day attraction that opened on October 1st of 1971 at Magic Kingdom. And it was introduced as Walt Disney World's version of Autopia. Theming-wise, it was different as Disneyland's Autopia was set on a futuristic roadway, and the Grand Prix Raceway was intended to be more of a road race. But this ride served to be very popular, and in 1973, just 2 years after the park opened, they expanded the track. 1 year later, in 1974, they reduced the track to make way for Space Mountain. And close to 15 years later, that track was shortened yet again. And that made just enough space for a small, temporary land meant to celebrate Mickey's 60th. The budget was small, the timeline was tight, but Disney pulled it off.
It was official! My birthday land was open to everybody!
The year is 1988, and as you walk into the Magic Kingdom, you hear an announcement from Minnie Mouse talking all about Mickey Mouse's surprise party. You hop aboard the Walt Disney World Railroad, renamed to Mickey's Birthday Land Express. As you make your way around the track, you hear special Mickey's birthday music and you pass plywood characters. And then you arrive at a brand new train stop created just for Mickey's Birthday Land. The land is set in the city of Duckburg, and different facades from buildings in Duckburg greet you. You pass by the Duck County School, where Huey, Dewey, and Louie went to school. You pass by Goofy's Barber Shop, the SS Donald, which was just a facade at the time, a candy store, Duckburg News, and so much more. Next, you would have the chance to actually go into Mickey Mouse's house. And there is something pretty key to know about this house. It was only intended to be temporary. This entire land was only going to be there for about a year and a half. The theming of the house was different from what I remember from my childhood, but still had some of the fun humor that we saw in the later version of Toontown. Then you would reach one of the most exciting parts of the land, the birthday party tent. After watching Disney cartoons in a holding area, guests could see a show called Minnie's Surprise Birthday Party. And after the show, guests could proceed into another room to see Mickey and his friends perform a short performance on top of a birthday cake with confetti candles. And guests finally had the chance to have a specific spot to meet Mickey Mouse. There was one other attraction in this land. It didn't have any rides, but it did have Grandma Duck's petting farm. The star of the farm was a cow named Minnie Moo, who actually had a hidden Mickey on her in her cow print. Food options were pretty minimal in the land, but you could buy cupcakes and drinks and other snacks on a cart, as well as some 60th anniversary merchandise. And while intended to be temporary, this land was a smashing success. Guests loved it. And so Disney decided to keep it, but of course Mickey Mouse's birthday was over, so they renamed it. On May 26th of 1990, the land opened under a new name, Mickey Starland.
Mickey Starland is a cartoon town where the kids would be perfectly happy to stay and play all day with Disney's lovable cast of characters.
This land was functionally identical to Mickey's Birthday Land, but with the birthday theme stripped down. The birthday show was rethemed, first to a show called Mickey's Magical TV World, then to a show called Mickey's Starland Show. But other than that, the land stayed primarily the same. The birthday tents that were up were now just circus tents that were up, and all those Duckbird facades remained. Years later, for Christmas of 1995, the land was very briefly and temporarily renamed to Mickey's Toyland. So a bit of identity crisis for this land maybe, but there was an even bigger problem. It had now been 7 years since the land opened. The duckburg facades were rotting. The tent canvas was rotting. Disney just hadn't intended them to last 7 years of Florida weather. And there was another problem. There were 0 rides in the land. If this land was going to remain, Disney needed to do a major refurb. And that they did. Because on Walt Disney World's 25th anniversary, the Cake Castle wasn't the only new thing. To celebrate the 25th anniversary, Toontown opened, and it's not the old Mickey's Birthday Land or Mickey's Starland that we know and love. This land has a whole set of new attractions. It has a brand new roller coaster, the Barnstormer at Goofy's Wiseacre Farm. Mickey's house was renamed to Mickey's Country House to represent his holiday home as he permanently lives in Disneyland. Minnie Mouse's country house actually opened up. Yes, Minnie and Mickey live in separate houses, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure they are married. Donald Duck got a permanent boat, not just the SS boat facade. And in the old tents where those shows were located, there was a brand new meet and greet, and they were rethemed to the Hall of Fame and the Judge's tent. There was a new Toon Park Chippendale play area for younger kids. Overall, this land just felt a lot more permanent. It was much more exciting and guests loved it. So why on earth did Disney close it? When Mickey's Birthday Land opened in 1998, Orlando in and of itself was in a very different spot in terms of the theme park space. Walt Disney World only had 2 parks. MGM would open the year after. Universal Studios didn't even have a park at the time, but flash forward a decade and a lot of things had changed. In 1990, Universal Studios opened, and in 1999, Islands of Adventure opened. And this park and Animal Kingdom really showed what the future of immersive theme parks would be.
Islands of Adventure, the most amazing theme park ever created. Now thrilling families at Universal Orlando. Step inside the whimsical world of Dr. Seuss. Explore the real-life Jurassic Park. Ride with Spider-Man in the world's most spectacular 3D adventure. Come visit the all-new Islands of Adventure.
First came the Magic Kingdom, then Epcot, then Disney MGM Studios, and now... Introducing the most adventurous Walt Disney World theme park ever. Disney's Animal Kingdom. The imagination of Disney gone wild.
While Animal Kingdom was considered a half-day park by a lot of guests, it had the most immersive theming that Disney had built to date. And between the new lands at Universal Studios, Jurassic Park, Seuss Landing, the Lost Continent, which actually was going to be a land at Disney, and then they fired the Imagineers and they went to Universal. We should talk about that. A new era of theme park design had arose with immersive environments and embedded detail that had never been seen before. But all of that changed again in the year 2010.
Coming this spring, you can truly be part of Harry Potter's world, where magic becomes real and excitement awaits at every turn. Explore the wizarding world of Harry Potter. A world of magical new adventures only at Universal Orlando Resort, where you can be courageous, be outrageous, be extraordinary.
Enter the wizarding world of Harry Potter. This land opened up at Universal Studios, and it was by far the most immersive land in the entire world. Now guests could physically step foot into a new land themed after one of the most popular franchises in the entire world. And Disney needed to level up to compete, and that they did. Over the past 15 years or so, we've seen the most immersive lands come: Cars Land, Pandora, Frozen, Galaxy's Edge, and more. But the very first immersive land to get that ball rolling for Disney was actually what replaced Toontown. In 2009, just as Universal was finishing the Wizarding World, Disney made somewhat of a shocking announcement.
Let's go!
New Fantasyland at Magic Kingdom. For the first time ever, dine in Beast's Castle. Go to new depths with Ariel's undersea adventure. Explore sprawling kingdoms and make memories that you'll never forget at the new Fantasyland.
Fantasyland was receiving a facelift and an expansion. This was going to use the space that was formerly left by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, part of which had been used for Toontown, but a lot of which was still there. And guests started to worry about what this meant for the future of Toontown. Fantasyland in and of itself was always intended to be more than it initially was. In fact, it was one of Walt's greatest disappointments. because Disneyland in the early 1950s was running out of money and they were running against a clock. They didn't finish Tomorrowland and they barely finished Fantasyland, but it wasn't at all what Walt imagined. He wanted a magical storybook village, and instead they had to completely slash the budget. And their cheap solution was putting up medieval tents to make it seem like a medieval fair. In the 1980s, Disneyland's Fantasyland received a full facelift that brought that European storybook village theme to life. But Magic Kingdom, which had followed in Disneyland's footsteps with Fantasyland, probably because it was cheap, did not receive that same update. And in fact, some of those medieval tents are still there today. I'm looking at you, Small World. The facelift of Fantasyland would leave a lot of the buildings that we know and love the same, but there were some bigger changes. Several attractions were swapped out or moved. An entire new section of the park was going to be opened, and that was going to be called the Fantasy Forest or the Enchanted Forest. Basically, this is the portion of Fantasyland that lies outside of the castle walls. This land would use the same immersive formula that Universal used to open the Wizarding World. Guests would be able to step into their favorite films, to eat, drink, and shop where Beauty and the Beast characters might, or to walk along the seaside hills of Eric's castle from The Little Mermaid, to meet Cinderella in her stepmother's chateau, or meet Snow White in her cottage, to step into the oversized world of Pixie Hollow. Wait, that didn't happen. And neither did Cinderella's. Hold on. As fans looked at the brand new concept art that Disney released, they were worried because they noticed that there was a bit of a skew of the demographic that these lands were appealing to. Princesses, fairies, this typically appeals more towards girls than boys. Not always, but a lot of times. And not only that, but this land, while it had a lot of meet and greets, only intended to have one new ride. So fans were pretty quick to push back on the expansion. 2 years after that announcement, Imagineers showed updated concept art at the D23 Expo. This time we lost the Sleeping Beauty meet and greet, we lost the Cinderella meet and greet, we lost the Snow White meet and greet. Instead, Disney announced plans to build a Seven Dwarfs mining roller coaster. Honestly, one of the most genius things they ever did. Of course, the park didn't need 2 Snow White attractions, so the Snow White Dark Ride was planned to be closed and replaced with the permanent Princess meet and greets. And as for Pixie Hollow, well, we also said goodbye to that for something more gender neutral. The circus tents that had been around since 1988 for Mickey's Birthday Land, Mickey's Starland, Mickey's Toyland, Toontown, they were going to be reused yet again for a new land, a circus-themed land, Storybook Circus. And that brings us to the current day land. The train station of Toontown remained, with some retheming to turn it into Carolwood Park, which actually has really cool ties back to Walt Disney. The tents remained, although they were refurbished, and now they held a store and a meet and greet. The Barnstormer remained, but it was rethemed into the Great Goofini, and Dumbo was relocated to this land. It was doubled to have 2 Dumbo rides, and a playground was added for kids. And this land is exactly what Disney wanted. And while I want to stay on topic, I know a lot of us don't love Storybook Circus because there's just not that much to it. Specifically, the full back half of the land really feels like a dead zone. There's a lot of seating, but there's no food that you can get, so it's just not really utilized. Well, as I had said, Disney was really listening to fans' input with this. And one of the things that the fans most asked for was more seating areas that people could eat lunch in and relax. And so while it might not be the most interesting or impressive part of the land, Disney built this as an answer to the fans' asks. I don't know where those fans are because I've never seen anyone sitting at those tables, but I think if Disney opened a little quick service spot there, they would. But back to what I was saying, yes, Storybook Circus was everything that Disney wanted in building an immersive land. Really stepped Disney into a brand new era, full of immersive theme parks and immersive lands.
Due to the fact that guests are seeing entertainment in ways they have never seen it before, in movies, in print, and online, Walt Disney Imagineering is really stepping it up and really bringing that into our attractions in ways we've never done in the past.
You are now able to step foot into some of your favorite Disney films, and it really paved the way for all of the lands that we have now. There would be no Galaxy's Edge, there would be no Pandora, there would be no Radiator Springs if there hadn't been Storybook Circus. And that is the story of why Disney took away Toontown. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel because every week we are posting Disney deep dives of some of the most interesting topics about Disney. From abandoned Disney to secrets of the parks that most people don't know, lost attractions that were never built, and even lost parks. We have so much to cover, and I hope I see you here next week.